Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. A very warm welcome to the Strategic Business Leader Webinar to Success for June 2022 exams. I am your tutor Kashif Kamran. Now today is the day 4 of this webinar to success, and we have the similar agenda which I have been discussing for the last 2 days of this webinar, which is to look into the September-December 21 paper. Now, this will be the third day since I am discussing with you the September-December 21 paper, because we need to learn so much. Every day, the time I spend with you on the September-December 21 paper, I hope you learned something out of it. The first day was very journal. We just got an idea about how to read the task and how to break the requirements, how to gain the professional marks, how to split the technical marks into the marking scheme, etc., and how you should dump the task into the into the response options. Then on the day 2, more specifically, we went into drafting, we went into reading the exhibits, we went into copying things from the exhibits and pasting them to the response option, and then converting them to a specific point in the context of the case study. We even realized the importance of reading the article on day 2, and I hope you all agree. We went to the list of 10 to 12 must to read articles at the end of the day 3, which is extremely important. So let's open the day 4. Let's start the proceedings of the day 4, and let's see what sort of surprises or what sort of knowledge we have in store for the day 4. So welcome to the day 4 of the webinar to success. Let's start the proceedings and let's see what is in store. Again, a deep investigation of the September-December 21 paper, a final dimension, a very important dimension, which we have not taken in the last 2 days. So a final dimension of the platform and a final dimension of the paper. Again, evaluation of the examiner report, another reading of the examiner report, and again, something to get out of it as well, because every time we read the examiner report, we will get something good out of it in terms of incremental marks in the upcoming June exams. Again, the do's and don'ts of the practice platform. We will make a final list of that today as well, because that will be our final exercise on the practice platform. So we should be very sure about the usage of the platform and the do's and don'ts. Now, this is a key learning we got yesterday. Just a quick recap. The first learning we got on day 3 was candidates who scored well on professional skill did so because their answers were well focused to the case study. And that was the main picking point yesterday, that if you want to pass SBL and you want to gain more marks in SBL, your answer should be linked to the case study. It should not be a generic answer. So the more you absorb the case study in your answer, the better is for you, rather than you writing a generic answer. That was a key learning from yesterday. Then many candidates simply copied pasted the exhibits and they did not develop the point. So simply copy pasting information from the exhibit to your answer and not developing it, not using it, or not evaluating it, or not assessing it, of no use. You can copy paste, but provided you develop the point, you evaluate the point, and you explain the point in your own words. That's very important. Read articles, don't ignore them, because otherwise you will be regretting, just like the customer segmentation, a 12 marks question, which came in September-December 21 exam. And all those 12 marks were inside the examiner article on market segmentation. Again, that ignorance of reading articles can be a regret. So I hope all of you, rather than coming to a phenomena of regret when you come out of the exam hall in the coming week, it is better to read the articles. And I've given you a list of 12 must to read articles yesterday, day 3, and I hope you've started reading them, if you can give me the feedback. So since yesterday to today, have you started reading those articles? Have you got the inspiration to read the articles? And how many of you have started them? Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Ellen and Sahil, for confirming that you are on that list and fresher. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to the day 4 agenda, which is to look at another question. Okay, let's go back to the practice platform again. I hope you can see the practice platform back on your screen. And few important things needs to be reinforced today apart from drafting another answer. Now, it is very, very important that when you are on the practice platform or you are in the real exam, first of all, number one is a scratch pad. I, as a tutor, do not find any significance or any importance of using the scratch pad, because I believe first you will copy the information on the scratch pad. Then from the scratch pad, you will take information to the word processor or to the response option. So that's like an extra step. That's like an extra effort. So I believe whatever you have to do it directly on the response option. Yes, but if you have copy pasted something on the response option, which you have not utilized and which you have not incorporated, please delete that information from the response option. Don't leave any information in the response option which is of no use or which is not part of your answer. This is extremely important. I hope you all heard me loud and clear on this. So any unattended information from the response option should be deleted. Is that clear? So don't leave any unattended information in the response option after you have completed your answer. So if there is something copy pasted but not used, delete it. So you might put something extra in the response option when you're reading and planning, but when you convert that reading and planning to answer, there might be a lot of information which you have not touched upon, which you have not even considered. Please delete that off. Is that clear to all of you? And the scratch pad, right? You will not be making use of the scratch pad. If any one of you has a tendency of using it, please continue to use it. But as a tutor, I never liked using the scratch pad. So this is just my perspective on scratch pad. You might agree or disagree with that because every student has a different way how he or she approaches the platform. I hope you're all clear on that, right? Calculator, again, if you need a calculator in SBL exam somewhere to do some financial analysis, I prefer you have your own calculator. But if you are comfortable with an on-screen calculator and you like on-screen calculators, then go ahead with it. But again, this is my perspective. If I am attempting a paper, I would like to have my own calculator on a desktop because I'm more comfortable with my calculator rather than using an on-screen calculator. So again, you have to decide either you are using an on-screen calculator if needed, or you will carry your own calculator. What is your perspective on this? Do you prefer using your own calculator or anyone comfortable with an on-screen calculator? Quick answers. Anyone comfortable with on-screen calculator, or you prefer your own calculators? Just waiting for your answers. Okay, on-screen calculators are time-consuming. Sahil is saying that. Okay, Yunus is saying that you use the screen calculator. Okay, that's fine. And that's exactly what I find among students, that every student have his or her priorities. Now, some like it, some dislike it. So you need to find what's the best way for you. So you might use an on-screen calculator, you might not use it, but you have to be sure of it, right? Strike through, I've never seen strike through as a valid command because I never use it. The only command I use is the highlight, because when you're reading through the case study, you need to highlight key informations and whatever information you're highlighting should be copy pasted to the response option. So if you highlight something, that means it's important and it should then be converted to your word processor. So I do find significance of a highlighter a lot. So I think these are the key features you have on a practice platform. There might be a conflict on a calculator and a scratchpad. Anyone who uses scratchpad? Anyone who likes scratchpad? Because again, that means you will be using it on the day of exam as well. Anyone among you who likes scratchpad or who is habitual of scratchpad, or all of you dislike it? Just waiting for your quick answers on that. And please be a bit quicker on responding. What about scratchpads and your opinions on scratchpads? Are you using it or you're not? Can you drop your question answers? Okay, not using it. Ellen is saying that. No, sir, is Sahil. Okay, Jonas is saying no. So I think majority of you don't prefer using a scratchpad. Okay, that's number one. Okay, now the next thing. Now, when you read the requirements, it's very important you dump the requirements into the word processor. We've already discussed that, so I will be reinforcing that. Now, today we are looking into one more requirement, which is the task number 4 today. But just before coming to that, I just want to address something very important. Otherwise, I'll be forgetting it. Now, one very bad habit of students when they're attempting an SBL paper, in the reading and planning time, you should read all the exhibits. For example, you are attempting a task on a CSR, or you are attempting a task on a customer segmentation. Not necessarily that only one exhibit contain information about customer segmentation, or only one exhibit contain information about CSR. There could be information about CSR, information about customer segmentation, which is diversified in all the exhibits or in multiple exhibits. So if you just look at one exhibit and develop your answer, that will be wrong, because later in a certain exhibit, there might be an information which contradict the previous information on CSR or on customer segmentation. So always ensure that you read through all the exhibits in the reading and planning time, because you might get information about one task in multiple exhibits. Is that clear? So you might get information about one task in multiple exhibits. I think CSR was quite scattered yesterday. Customer segmentation was very scattered yesterday. So you might get lot of information in multiple exhibits about some requirements. But listen to the second thing now carefully. There might be a task of which the information is contained in only one exhibit. And you have to be clever of that. Now, when you are reading the exhibits here, look at this screen here. I'm just highlighting the screen here. When you're reading the screen, which is telling you about which exhibit contains what, and you look at the exhibit number 8, which is the email from the finance director. Right here. Email from the finance director outlining the outcome of a recent internal audit meeting, which highlighted several internal control weaknesses identified at Optima Fitness and Leisure Club. Now, I know the task 4, that the task 4 is asking me the potential impact of the weaknesses which have been identified, So the weaknesses have been identified. I just need to talk about their potential impact and how to overcome them. Right? So that's where I need to be critical. I'm just stopping here, resume back after the internet connection gets restored. I'll resume back from. Hello and welcome. I'm Kashif Kamran. I'm resuming from the point where I got disconnected. This is a day 4 of the SBL webinar to success, and we were discussing something relating to the exam requirement on the portal when we got disconnected. So let me share again the portal with you, and let's start to discuss from where we left out. I hope you can see the portal in front of you, the practice platform. and we were discussing something extremely important. Just let me do the recap. Now, when you look at the exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you know the task because you read the task before reading the exhibits, right? All of you know that. Now you have read the task, you know there in the task there is something about customer segmentation, something about CSR, something about mobile technology, something about the BFIT program, something about weaknesses in the internal control, right? Now, once you know the requirements and you come to the exhibits, obviously within 1 hour of the time you have to read all exhibits because information can be scattered. Information about CSR or information about customer segmentation could be scattered, etc. Or information about mobile technology can be scattered, or information about big data can be scattered, etc. But there is a possibility there is a possibility that one of the exhibit, when you are reading the title of the exhibit, you get sure enough that this exhibit only relates with one requirement. For example, we were looking at the exhibit number 8, which is right here on the right hand side of the screen. I hope you can see that. I just highlighted that. Email from the finance director outlining the outcome of the recent internal audit, which highlighted several internal control weaknesses. So this internal audit report has highlighted several weaknesses in the internal control at Optima. And look at the task number 4. The task number 4 is asking you, prepare a report for the presentation at the next board meeting, which evaluates the impact of the weaknesses which have already been identified. They have already been identified in the exhibit number 8, and you need to recommend action to address each weaknesses. Now, you're very sure that the answer of the task 4 lies in the exhibit number 8, not in any other exhibit. Am I correct? So sometime it do happen in SBL exam that you find a certain exhibit addressing a certain task. Apart from that, the information can be scattered. You might need to read multiple exhibits to find relevant information to design an answer of a given task. But are you all clear that task 4 connects with the exhibit number 8 in as a whole? We do not need to look into any other exhibits. So this can happen, right? Sometime in the SBL paper, that one exhibit can be for one task, which is exactly the case for the task number 4. Now, when you are dumping the task, which we did on the day 2, and you're dumping the task on the response option, you did dump the task 4 on the response option. You can see that in front of you. We did dump the task 4 on the day 2 on the response option. Now, when you're reading the exhibits, the titles of the exhibits, and you came across, oh, the exhibit number 8 is about internal control weaknesses. So immediately in front of the task 4, you write exhibit answer will come from exhibit 4. Sorry, exhibit 8. Now you have to write that, because once you come to exhibit 8, you know, okay, this is what I have to connect with task number 4. And when you are answering the task number 4, you know that most of the answer, or the 100% answer, will come from exhibit 8. So while you dump the task on the word processor, and you know there is a definite exhibit which connects with a task, do write that after. This can only happen with few of the tasks, not with every task, but you have to read all the exhibits. That is a much better rule of thumb for SBL paper. Now, just one last thing. Yesterday on the day 3, before I just come back to the task 4, we were looking at the task number 1B. I hope you all remember. And the task number 1B was talking about the strategic importance of CSR, right? I hope you agree. And we were talking about the strategic importance of CSR to Optima for its customer and staff and for its wider stakeholder, right? Now, you know the task 1B is about CSR. And when you look at the exhibits on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see in some of the exhibits, you can find the word CSR. Look at this exhibit number 3. The exhibit number 3 has a terminology CSR. So you're very sure that some of the answer about the task 1B will come from exhibit number 3. And then you can look at the word CSR in the exhibit number 5 again. So you're very sure that some of the answer will also come from exhibit number 5. But the information about CSR could be scattered because eventually you have to read all the exhibits, right? Because definitely you will be reading all the exhibits. But I'm not saying 100% answer about CSR will come from exhibit 3 and exhibit 5 because they have a terminology CSR. You can have information about CSR in the other exhibits as well. But you know that task number 1B, which we have here, task number 1B, right here. Sorry, task number 1B was on these slides. So you can write here task number 1B on slides that most of the answer will come from exhibit 3 and exhibit 5. Look at this task on the word processor. Task number 2A and 2B, BFIT program, collaborative partnership. Examiner was talking about a collaborative partnership in the task number 2A and 2B, and you need to consider the collaborative partnerships, opportunities, and threat, and you need to consider the challenges of this collaborative partnership. Look at these exhibits. In the exhibits, you find the exhibit number 6, which is about a collaborative partnership. And you say, oh, the answer mostly of collaborative partnership will come from the exhibit number 6. So you go back to your word processor. In front of the task 2A and 2B, you will write most of the answer will come from exhibit 6. Now you can do so. I hope you're getting my point here, what I'm discussing with you since last few minutes. So when you are reading the titles of the exhibits, tell me, can the title of exhibit tell you that to which task can it be relatable? You look at the CSR, you say, oh, it's relatable to 1B. You look at the task collaborative partnership, you say, oh, it's relatable to the task 2A and 2B. You look at internal control weaknesses and you say, oh, it relates to the task number 4. So are you getting my point here? Look at this point. Exhibit number 7, technological developments. Can this be linked to big data and mobile technology? Exhibit number 7, apart from information coming from other exhibits. So can exhibit number 7 be linked to big data? Right. So where was the big data? Task number 3. So task number 3, we say most, we're not saying 100%, but we're saying most of the info will come from exhibit 7. Now that is what you can do. So you know exactly that which exhibit is contributing more. So exhibit 8 is very important because it's contributing to task 4. Exhibit 7 is very important. It's contributing to task 3. Exhibit 6 is very important. It's contributing to task 2. And exhibit 3 and 5 is very important because it's contributing to task 1B. Now we have an exhibit 1, which is an overview. We have an exhibit 2. We have an exhibit 4, which is journal information, which can be helpful in any particular task. I hope you're clear with that. So ensure you read the titles of the exhibit because the titles of exhibit help you relate them with the relevant task you have dumped in the word processor. Is that something of a key learning? Will you benefit from this, all of you? Let me put this on my Word file. Okay, just let me put the key learning for day 4 and we're starting writing the answer now. Key learnings, day 4. The first key learning from day 4 is after you have read the task and have dumped the task into word processor. I hope you're clear with this. We have done this on day 2. After you have read the task and have dumped the task into the word processor, you will read the titles of the exhibits. You will read the titles of the exhibits given on the right hand side of the screen, the main screen, right hand side of the screen, because the titles of the exhibits will help you to connect an exhibit with a task, right? But again, you have to read all the exhibits, right? But at least there will be a certain exhibit for sure which addresses a task. Now see, we found certain exhibits for task 1B. We did found certain exhibits for task 2, 3, and 4, but we didn't found any exhibit for customer segmentation. That means the information about customer segmentation could be scattered. Look at this. Did we find any exhibit which is using the word customer segmentation? Did we find any exhibit which is using the word market segmentation? No. So that means the information about task 1A could be very scattered. But in certain exhibits, you do find a terminology which is exactly the terminology which is used in the requirement. Agree or disagree? So is reading the titles of exhibit important? Is reading the titles of exhibit important, right? When will you read them? After you have read the task or before you read the task? After reading the task or before reading the task? After. Wonderful. So I hope you're all on track, right? Now we know that the answer for task 4, which we are doing today, will come from exhibit 8. So we'll read exhibit 8, we'll draft the answer, and then I will be discussing plenty more important information with you, which will give you a confidence ahead of your exams. Okay, let's open the task number 4. I've copied the task number 4 on my word processor. So I'm just copying the task 4 from the word processor down to my Word file, which I'm using on a daily basis, and we'll do a analysis again of this. Okay, key learnings, and we are back into the answer for task 4, and we dump it here. Okay, now let's evaluate what is to be done in task 4, and then let's plan the answer. Okay, task 4, we just got that most of the answer or the entire answer of task 4 will come from exhibit number 8. We just got that. Report. You have to write a report for the next board meeting. And we know report is structured very well to from subject, something like that, introduction, conclusion, evaluate. What is to be put in the report? Evaluate the potential impact. What is the impact of the weakness which has been identified? Now, will you get any marks for explaining a weakness? No, because the weaknesses have been identified. What you need to tell is what is the implication of the weakness. I hope you're getting that message. What is the impact of the weakness? Now, when you read the exhibit 8, for sure, the weakness will be given there and everyone will pick it out. But what needs to be done is that you explain the implication of the weakness. What is the impact of the weakness, right? And then for every weakness you have explained, you need to recommend an action to address that weakness, and you have 15 marks. Now, we ideally know that we have 2 marks per relevant point. Now, in the case of a weaknesses question, I think there was a question in the past paper which asked for weaknesses in the corporate governance and recommendation. Every time examiner asks you a question on weaknesses and recommendation, and you know there are 2 marks per valid point, how would you break those 2 marks here? You know there are 2 marks per valid point. Now, in the case of a question on weaknesses and recommendation, how would it split? It will split like this: 1 mark per weakness and 1 mark per recommendation. So 1 weakness and 1 recommendation, a cumulative 2 marks. but 1 mark for a weakness, 1 mark for a recommendation. So still the marks remain 2, but you have to break them down. I hope you're getting this marking scheme in mind clearly. So whenever you get a question on a weakness and a recommendation, 1 for weakness, 1 for recommendation is equal to 2, right? Now you have a 15 marks question. And interestingly, when you look at a 15 marks question and you go back to the exhibit number 8, you will be amazed with one thing. Let me open the exhibit 8 with you. Can you see the exhibit number 8 in front of your screen now? Can you all see that? Please confirm. Just need to guide you about the marking scheme. Okay, this is the exhibit number 8. Okay, I'm just reading, concentrate, and then let's decide the marking scheme of 15 marks. This is an email from Jerry, who is the finance director, and it's to the senior corporate business analyst, which we are in the case study. And the subject is internal audit review. So finance director is writing to you. Good day. I have just received a report from the internal audit department, which has identified several weaknesses in the internal control system within our club. As you know, we allow club managers a lot of autonomy in order for them to make decisions which best suit their local needs. However, I am concerned that this may be impacting on the effectiveness of our internal controls. The main issues identified were as follows. So he believes, as a finance director, that we have given a lot of autonomy to our managers, which in one case is good, but he's also concerned that the autonomy given to the managers is also impacting on the internal control system. So he's a bit concerned about the level of autonomy. He's a bit concerned about the autonomy given to the managers. Though he is happy with the autonomy, but he believes that there is a negative impact coming of that autonomy on the internal control system. Following issues have been identified in the internal control system. Now look at this. How many issues? Can you see the numbers? 1 issue, 2 issue, 3 issue, and 4 issue. So there are only 4 issues. 4 issue means 4 weaknesses. And it ends, the report concluded that there appears to be a lack of clear leadership on the importance of an effective internal control system throughout the organization. I'm meeting with the chief executive later to report on the internal control findings, and I will need your assistance in considering how we address the weaknesses in our internal control. Regards, Jerry. So how many weaknesses has the email identified for us in the internal control system of this leisure club? 4. Okay, now let's open the task number 4 and let's read this paragraph ahead of the task number 4. This paragraph ahead of the task number 4 is important. I did mention the importance of reading the opening paragraph before the task, because the opening paragraph before the task sets the tone what you need to do. Now see what the opening paragraph before the task is telling us. The senior management team of Optima has always placed emphasis on the local autonomy, allowing local managers at each fitness and leisure club to make decisions which best suit their local conditions, which is good. However, the finance director has received an internal audit report on Optima internal control weaknesses, which has identified several weaknesses at Optima's fitness and leisure club. The finance director has asked you to help him prepare a report, which he will present at the next board meeting. So the finance director has asked you to help him prepare a report, which he will present at the next board meeting. And he needs to give this report to whom? He needs to give this report to the chief executive officer. So who is preparing this report? The finance director has asked you to help him preparing a report. But eventually, who is writing this report to whom? Is finance director only taking a help from you? But eventually this report will be written by the finance director. Eventually, this report will be written by the finance director to the chief executive officer because he's meeting the chief executive officer next week. So prepare a report, right? So it's the senior business analyst writing the report to the finance director, right? Or it is the finance director writing the report to the board of director. Who? Tell me. Analyst to the finance director. Okay, we are analyst, right? So analyst is writing this report to the finance director. Good. Okay, now come back to the Word file. How many marks we had? 15. Now, interestingly, how many weaknesses we have? We have 15 marks versus 4 weaknesses in exhibit number 8. Now look at the situation. We have just 4 weaknesses in the exhibit number 8. Now what to do? Now that means for every valid implication, we write about a weakness. There can be more than one implication to a weakness, right? Each implication and each recommendation. There can be more than one recommendation for a weakness, right? Each implication will fetch you 1 mark. Now, for example, for the weakness number 1, you wrote 3 implications, 3 marks. And for the weakness number 1, you wrote 3 actions, another 3 marks. So for the weakness number 1, because you wrote 3 implications and 3 recommendations, you got 6 marks on the weakness number 1. Then on the second weakness, you wrote 2 implications and 2 recommendations, you got another 4 marks, 10. Then you're left with 5 marks and 2 weaknesses. So you continue this way. So you have 4 weaknesses. So that definitely means per weakness, you are writing more than 1 recommendation, and per weakness, you're writing more than 1 implication. Agree or disagree? Per weakness, you're writing more than 1 action, and per weakness, you're writing more than 1 implication to fetch the 15 marks. Am I correct? Are you in agreement with me? Right? So each implication will fetch you 1 mark, and each recommendation will fetch you 1 mark. So you can write more than 1 implication. You can write more than 1 implication or more than 1 recommendation per weakness, because that's the only way you will fetch the 15 marks. Otherwise, it's next to impossible fetching 15 marks here. I hope you're clear on the marking scheme. Now let's read and write the answer. You need to demonstrate evaluation skill. So you are demonstrating the evaluation skill. You need to give a conclusion because you're writing a report to objectively appraise the implications. So you have to appraise the implications. What is the impact of the weakness? Objectively appraise the implication of the internal control weaknesses identified and to make well-reasoned recommendations. So you have to give a well-reasoned recommendation, number 1, and you need to appraise the implication. So how will you get the marks? Number 1, you will get the marks if you will appraise the implications. And number 2, you will get the marks if you make well-reasoned recommendations. So focus on this, When I'm writing the answer or when you are writing the answer, our recommendations have to be well-reasoned, number 1. If our recommendations are not well-reasoned, we are not fetching the 3 professional marks. And when we are writing the implication, we have to properly evaluate the implication. We have to properly appraise the implication for optima. And that's how we are fetching the 3 professional marks. Now you need to write a report in this answer. So you put the heading report to, from, subject, intro. We know the report starts with an introduction. And then in the report, you have, after the introduction, you have the weakness 1 heading, weakness 2 heading, weakness 3 heading, weakness 4 heading, and finally, conclusion. This is how the report would look like. And you fill up the skeleton. I'm just putting the skeleton on for you. To, from, date, subject, introduction, weakness number 1, weakness number 2, weakness number 3, weakness number 4, and our conclusion. Can you see this report format in front of your screen? Are you all clear with this? A report has to start with introduction, and a report has to end with a conclusion, irrespective examiner is asking you to evaluate or not. Conclusion is an integral part of the report. Is that clear to all of you? Conclusion is an integral part of the report, right? Okay, and introduction is also, right? Introduction is also an integral part of the report, and the report has a proper header, to, from, subject, right? The subject is implications of the weaknesses, implication of the weaknesses in internal control system, something like that, or implications and recommendations, implication and recommendations of the weaknesses in the internal control system. So that becomes the subject. To and from, you fill that up and you come to the introduction. How would you write the introduction? The purpose of writing this report is to evaluate the implications of each of the weaknesses identified by the internal audit department, and to justify an appropriate action which Optima can take to address each weakness, something like this, and you end the introduction. So introduction is basically the purpose, right? Why are you writing this report? So introduction is always the purpose. Then you write the weakness 1, 2, 3, 4, and you come to conclusion. Let's open the first weakness. I hope you're already set, right? For the first weakness to be opened. Back to the practice platform. Let's open up the email, exhibit number 8. Now, and you open up your word processor. Suppose you're doing an exam paper. You open up the word processor, you open up the exhibit number 8, 2 windows at a time. And when you are reading, if you get some important information, you will copy paste that to your word processor so that later you can develop that into implication and actions. So suppose you're doing it on the practice platform and you're writing a report for the next board meeting, which evaluates the assumption. So over here, you will write report to, from, subject, intro, and you say weakness 1, weakness 2, and you will dump what you're reading from the exhibit, weakness 3 and weakness 4, and you write a conclusion, right? Let's read the weakness 1 and dump that here when you're reading the exhibit. Okay, the first weakness. I hope you can see the screen in front, right? All of you. About 20% of the club managers are not reviewing regularly. Something not, if you look at this word not, that means it's a weakness, right? And obviously all 4 down are the weaknesses. About 20% of the club managers are not reviewing regularly or at all the monthly performance reports sent by the head office. So is this a weakness? Copy, Control C, bring it down under the weakness number 1, Control V. 20% of your club managers, which is quite a sizable proportion of managers, that's 1/5, 1 in every 5, is not reviewing the monthly performance reports which are sent by the head office, or they're not reviewing them at all. Some were not aware that they should in fact review this. So some had no idea that we had to review it. So probably they were not clear with their job description, or someone from the management or the HR department has not provided them a proper training that they have to review these performance reports. So some of them were not aware that we have to review these reports. Why are we getting the performance reports from the head office? They had no idea. So some were not aware that they should in fact review these reports, nor had any idea what the report contains. Quite strange, right? So they are getting the emails from the head office, but they're not sure what to do with these reports, and they're not sure whether we should review them or not. Quite strange, right? So there are two things here, one and second. Weakness number one. So there are two problems in the weakness number one which needs to be addressed. Firstly, they are not reviewing them on a monthly basis. And secondly, they were not aware that they should review it or not. And they had no idea what the report contained. Strange. Let's drag this weakness number one here to my Word file, and let's do the implication part. The weakness number one. Okay, let's do the first weakness. What are we doing? Implication, right? So first weakness, about 20% of the club managers are not reviewing regularly or at all the monthly performance report sent by the head office. This means that if there is any issues or problems or shortcomings in the monthly performance of the clubs, or any variances in the monthly performances, this means that if there are any issues or problems or shortcomings in the monthly performance reports of the club, or any variances in the monthly performances, this will go unaddressed. And the club managers will not be aware of the issues, and they can become alarming. They can become alarming. Or they can become alarming for the club and its relationship with its customers. Full stop. Implication. It can even affect their reputation, right? It can even affect their relationship with their members, with its members, right? Not customers, members. Bracket, customers. Look at the first one. So about 20% of the club managers are not reviewing regularly or at all the monthly performance reports sent by the head office. This means that if there are any issues in the performance reports, or there are any shortcomings in the performance reports, or there are variances in the performance reports, they will have no idea. They will go unaddressed, and the managers will not be aware of the issues, and it can become alarming, and it might even spoil your relationship with the members. So is it extremely important to read these performance reports to know where are we lagging, where are we lacking, where are we going behind, and we get an opportunity to address them? Because if you're not addressing these monthly performance reports, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, they might start becoming alarming and they might explode. So if you are not reviewing the monthly reports, there will be a point when it becomes alarming. I hope you all agree with me. Look at the second point. Some were not aware that they should in fact review these reports, nor they had idea what the report contains. This is quite strange. As it means that the managers, this is quite strange, as it means that the club managers were not made aware of their job responsibilities, or they are not clear with their job descriptions. They're not clear with their job descriptions to exactly know why performance reports are sent to them. They're not clear about that. This is quite strange, as it means that the club managers were not made aware of their job responsibilities, that they have to review it, or they're not clear with their job descriptions to exactly know what the performance, to exactly know why the performance reports are sent to them and what is expected from them on performance reports. What is expected from them on the performance report? They're not aware of that. So it's quite strange. Either your human resource department has not given them the proper training on the performance report, or either the board of director has not interacted well with the club managers about the importance of the performance report. I think there's a lack of leadership, and already that is mentioned in the email. If we go back to the exhibit number 8, sorry, look at the exhibit number 8 on your screen. It says, the report also concluded that there appears to be a lack of clear leadership. I think that leadership lacking is quite visible with the point we are writing here, that the club managers are not aware that they should review the report, nor they had any idea what is contained in the report, right? So what if some of them are not aware that they should review the report, will they be reviewing it? No, nor they had an idea what the report contains. So full stop. Thus, the club managers will not be taking these reports seriously, or simply ignore them and simply ignore them by not providing feedback, and again, any issues will go unresolved. Any issues will go unresolved, which could later damage the club reputation, or club reputation, full stop. So look at their attitude. Look at the attitude of the club managers. The attitude of the club manager is so lazy, or they're least bothered. They either says we are not aware what the report contains, or they say we were not aware that they should in fact review these reports. So if you email a report to the manager, he's least bothered opening the email, checking the email of the performance report. Whenever he sees the email of a performance report, he ignores it. There might be an alarming issue in the performance report. There might be an alarming situation in the performance report, and they are ignoring it. Eventually, this will bring a big dent on the repute of your Optima Leisure Club. And we know how popular Optima Leisure Club is. But ignoring a problem, putting a problem at the back and not addressing it, one day will badly hit your goodwill as a club. I hope you're clear with this, all of you. So you need to write the implications of the weaknesses. Now, again, this is my perspective. My only purpose is to guide you that you have to pick up a weakness and you need to think about an implication. You can have another implication in mind. Not necessarily you copy paste my implication. There might be an implication in your mind which is better than mine on the screen. You need to be flexible, right? But the purpose is to facilitate you, that you start thinking that this is the way I have to write. So the problem is given, you need to think about the implication. So let's write the actions simultaneously. Weakness number 1, the action. The leadership on top of the club managers, should reinforce the need to review monthly performance reports, the need to review monthly performance reports by giving clear set of directions, to all club managers, either through an interactive meeting with all of them, or through a proper training program, or through emails sent by the leadership. Some way you need to reinforce the importance of reviewing the monthly performance report. Either you sit down with them, you talk to them, either you have a training session for them, or you send them emails on the importance of reviewing the monthly performance report. If they get an email with the subject importance of reviewing the report, they will open it up and they will get to know, okay, that is the reason we get the reports. That is the reason that this is what exactly we have to do with a performance report. So the leadership on top of the club managers should reinforce the need to review the monthly performance report. So that's one. Second, further, it should be made mandatory. It should be made mandatory for all club managers to respond to the monthly performance reports, for example, within a week time after they have been received by them. Keep a check. When you email them the monthly performance report, mention that you need to respond to them within a week time. Further, it should be made mandatory for all club managers to respond to the monthly performance report, for example, within a week time after they have been received by them. If no response is received, a reminder should be sent, or a meeting should be called to address the issue contained within performance reports. You cannot be harsh saying they should be terminated from the job, they should be penalized. These are very harsh measures, right? You should ensure that the measures you are taking for the club managers, knowing these club managers are very important to you, you should have a consultation with them. You should have a mediation with them. You should have an interaction with them, or you should set some reminders for them, or you should send a timeline for them that after 1 week you should respond, within 1 week you should respond, etc. But again, these are just thought process. You can have your own actions. So these are 2 actions, right? 2 marks, 1 implication, 2 actions, 3 marks, and another implication down that some were not aware. So some of them were not even aware of the fact they have to review the report. Again, the leadership has to play a part here. The leadership has to give them proper trainings. They should have proper training sessions in which the importance of the performance report, the need to review the performance report is well guided. So I think the action above mitigates that. So I'm getting 4 marks, right, from the first weakness in total. 2 actions and 2 implications. Are you clear? You can have your own implications, think about them. You can have your own actions, think about them. Don't just say, okay, I'll stick to it. No, you might have a better example in your mind. You might have a better example to quote, which is wonderful. Is everyone clear? Muhammad Umar, are you clear as well? Okay, great. So in this way, you go to the weakness number 2, right? Then you go to the weakness number 3, and you go to the weakness number 4, and you put a conclusion. Let's do one more of them. Let's go back to the case study, and let's open the task number 4. Sorry, the exhibit number 8. And in the exhibit number 8, we have the second weakness. I hope you can all see that on the screen. There are at least 150 fitness instructors employed in our gym across Sealand without the relevant qualifications or without having undergone the correct induction and training required by the company. See the lack of leadership? And I think that is the key reason that even the club managers are not taking any interest in reading the performance report or not even knowing what the performance report contains. So I think there is a clear lack of leadership, even in the point number 2, which says at least 150 of the instructors are without relevant qualifications or have not undergone the correct induction and training required by the policy, by the company policy. So it's a total breach of the company policy. Control C, you open the word processor, and in the weakness number 2, you dump it in the exam, and then you develop the point. Now I take it on my word processor. Yes, if Alana, if the question asks for a summary of the weaknesses and the recommendation, then you make a table. But if the question is asking you write a report telling the implication of the weakness and the recommendation, then you don't make a table, right? You only make a table when the question is asking for a summary, right? I hope you're answering another question. Sorry, another student. Sorry, I just noted that out. So no tables, right? Unless asked for. Thank you. Okay, the weakness number 2, back on my Word file. You copy the weakness. There are at least 150 instructors employed in our gym across Sealand without relevant qualification or without having undergone correct induction and training required by the policy. You know the importance of these 150 instructors? They are either the instructors for the tennis classes, or they're either the instructor for the swimming classes. You have children's of 6 years plus. You have elderly people 65 plus. It might result in some accidents, injuries of the club members. They might give them the wrong instructions, which might result in some accidents in the swimming pool or while you're playing the tennis. You might hurt yourself, and that might affect your repute, right? So there are at least 150 instructors, full stop. This is quite a serious issue, as the Optima Leisure Club is very popular and there are 230,000 club members. There are 230,000 club members at their 55 facilities. See, I remember this since yesterday when I was reading the case, connecting the case. This is quite a serious issue, as Optima Leisure Club is very popular, and there are like 230,000 club members at their 55 facilities. If the instructors are not well qualified or not properly trained, they might give wrong instructions, either for tennis or swimming classes, No, it's very fine. When you're writing a weakness, right? it's very fine that you copy the sentence and then you continue after. In the rest of the requirements, we don't do that. But in a question like weaknesses, we copy the weakness and we continue writing the implication, right? So that's perfectly fine with a question like such. So it varies from a nature of question to question, right? I was not doing this yesterday, but I'm doing this today. So that means it's like the need of the question. Okay, if the instructors are not well qualified or not properly trained, they might give wrong instructions either for tennis or swimming classes. Yeah, remember this from yesterday, either for tennis and swimming classes, which might result in some accidents or injuries, and this might result in the company facing some litigations from the club members. Full stop. This will further result in the company losing its repute. The company is losing its repute and competitive advantage in the leisure industry, and a bad media publicity, because it's a listed company, right? A bad media publicity if the accidents and injuries gets to media spotlight. See how many implications have I wrote? I get maximum marks here. This might result in accidents and injuries facing some litigation, 1 mark. Further result in company losing repute and competitive advantage, 2nd mark. Bad media publicity if the accident and injuries gets to media spotlight, 3rd mark. Examiner is saying 1 mark per valid implication. Now, in the first weakness, I split them, but in the second weakness, I have accumulated them in 1 paragraph. So at least minimum 3 marks I'm coming across here with those 3 yellows implications, full stop. Next, further, comma, without having undergone correct induction and training required by the company policy, a breach of company policy. Further, there is a clear breach of company policy. There is a clear breach of company policy, which sets a wrong culture, at Optima, that Optima's policies are not relevant to follow or should not be taken seriously, by employees. It's sending a wrong message, right? Further, there is a clear breach of the company policy because they were not given the proper induction or proper training required by the company policy. So that means your HR department is not playing the leadership role here. Either your HR department is in the sleeping mode, they're not very active, right? Further, there is a clear breach of company policy, which sets a wrong culture at Optima, that Optima policies are not relevant to follow or should not be taken seriously by employees. This will have a serious implication at Optima's workplace, as this will set a trend. This will set a trend of breaching companies' policy where needed or where possible. So the implication is a trend will set, right? This is the implication, right? A trend will set that everyone start breaking the policy, because I think the implementation of the policy is very bad at Optima. And again, that demonstrates the lack of leadership. Coming down, one mark here, coming down to the actions. Number one, the human resource department should ensure that the qualifications of the instructors are checked at the time they are employed in future, and a strict compliance with the company policy of ensuring a proper induction training is given is ensured. So in the future, the HR department has to come on the front foot. They need to ensure that the qualifications are checked in future when you are inducting instructors, and you should ensure there is a strict compliance with the company policy in future, right? Induction training is the training which you give at the time a new employee joins in. So when a new employee joins in, induction is welcoming them. Induction is telling them about your culture, about your policies, about your rules, about your regulations. So induction is just to make them familiar with the organization, right? Just like orientation, very right. Just like I start my new batch, so I give orientation to the student just to make them familiar. Perfect answer. I hope you're clear, right? Good. So the human resource department should ensure that the qualifications are checked in future, and a strict compliance with the policy of ensuring proper induction is given is ensured. Full stop. Further, instructors should be regularly checked by engaging them in short training, training sessions to ensure, by engaging them in some mock exercises, which is monitored by the leadership, to ensure the instructor is fully aware of the company policy. Some drills, right? By engaging them in some mock drills, just to ensure they know what is to be done. For example, you can create a mock drill of any employee taking on a swimming lesson, and you ask the instructor to give him a swimming training, right? And watch him how he give it. Is he abiding by every set of rules while you're giving a swimming lesson to anyone? So you can have a mock drill with some employees playing the tennis, or some employees doing swimming, and the instructor facilitating them. And you sit back and watch that every rule and regulation is being followed, which are safety rules and regulations, particularly in swimming, and every protocol or every SOP is being followed of the company. I hope you're clear with that. Yes, continuing professional development is better. That a regular training program should be in place, where regular trainings are given to the instructors just to ensure they are familiar with the company policy. So some mock drills, which is monitored by the leadership to ensure the instructors is fully aware of the company policy and the company policy when giving instructions, full stop. 1 mark for this, 1 mark for above. So almost fetching like 2 marks 3, 3 and 3, 6. 6 marks from the weakness number 2. And almost like 4 marks from the weakness number 1. 10 marks out of the 15. I hope you're clear with this. You must have got a way out, right? So weaknesses are given. You need to convert them to implication. Where possible, you can quote some information from the case. As I quoted 230,000 members, I quoted 55 facilities, I quoted about the swimming classes, the tennis classes. So the information from the prior exhibits are coming forward. But is that clear? And then in the final, you give a conclusion. Weaknesses, right? Each of the weakness above is critical for optima. Each of the weakness above is critical for optima because if they are not addressed on a timely basis, it will challenge optima's market position, and it will challenge optima's market position and overall competitiveness. Each of the weakness above is critical because if they're not addressed on a timely basis, it will challenge optima's market position and overall competitiveness. So actions recommended should be implemented immediately to avoid any damage to optima's reputation. Full stop. Conclusion should not be longer than this, right? Because conclusion is a summary. The student start writing a new answer in conclusion. Student write half a page introduction. Student write half a page conclusion as if you're writing a new answer. Introductions and conclusions are just a starter and enders. You cannot just drag them. Conclude. You're not repeating information in conclusion. Conclusion is just a summary of things discussed above. I hope you're fine with this. Task number 4, another exercise of how you should be going down with marks, picking things up and drafting things down. Okay, now listen to me very carefully. First of all, we'll go back to the examiner report and then we'll spend time on something very important today. Let me first take you to the examiner report. I hope you can see the examiner report on the screen. We have to go to the task number 4 because that's what we were doing today. Okay, can you see the task number 4 in front of your screen now from the examiner report? Please confirm that. Okay, great. Let's go down and see what is the comment. Okay, examiner is telling us about the task 4 and what exactly the student did. This question was by far the best answered question on the entire exam, and it was chance for candidates to score good marks. Most candidates were able to produce a good range of implications and actions for the control activities identified in Exhibit 8. So there was a definite answer for this in Exhibit 8. And that's what I was telling you at the start of the session, that some of the tasks can have a definite answer in a certain definite exhibit. You need to be clever enough to pick that out. Now, second, normally when a question comes on weaknesses and when a question comes on recommendation, the performance of the student is comparatively better. And that's what the examining team is appreciating, because I think there is a carry forward impact coming from the AA paper as well, because a lot of time the student do the same exercise in the AA paper, control weaknesses and recommendations. So you're very familiar with this structure of the answer. The implications of the weaknesses and the control activities were often done well. So examiner is very happy this time. And many picked up marks here. So examiner is full of appreciations. The lack of review of monthly performance reports was probably the most poorly answered. Weakness number 1, right? The lack of review of the monthly performance report was probably the most poorly answered. So now comes the first criticism. As many candidates missed the fact that operational issues would be missed over time and potentially impact on business performance, right? And that was my point of view as well, that if you tend to ignore the monthly performance reports, the issues will become alarming or they will become burning. So if you are ignoring, that ignoring can result into a disaster for the business, right? The control weaknesses of having unqualified staff. So having unqualified staff and poor security were generally well answered with a good range of impacts such as reputational and potential loss of revenue, full stop. Weakness number 3, I think in the weakness number 3, there was something about poor security and student linking the unqualified staff and poor security with reputational risk and loss of revenue. Because if you lose your customers because of unqualified staff or poor security, eventually you are also getting affected with your revenue or your market share or your competitive advantage. So you need to think about impact on the business. If you've done the AAA paper, there is a question which comes in the AAA paper, business risk. So these weaknesses are like the business risk. What is the impact of them on the business? So you need to think about the impact on the business, right? The approval and payment of the refurbishment. The approval and payment of refurbishment was answered reasonably well. That was another weakness which we've not covered. Although some candidates went little further than recognizing that this as a failure of segregation of duty and did not consider the implication for optima on the internal control weaknesses. So examiner is saying the approval and the payment of the refurbishment was answered reasonable, although some candidates went little further than recognizing this is a failure of segregation of duty. So when you are reading the weakness number 4 at home, so examiner is saying there was a bit more than segregation of duties. So try to pick what extra was there apart from segregation of duty. I think one person was doing the approval and one person was doing the payment. So there is a segregation of duty, but what further? Can there be any fraudulent activities? Can there be some fraud taking place in the company? Can there be some misuse of resources, misuse of cash, etc.? So overall, examiner is happy. Next, most answers also presented a good range of recommendations. So most answer presented a good range of recommendations. So examiner is all very happy today. And it seems that examiner is trying to motivate you ahead of your exams. Yesterday, he was very angry. So presented a good range of recommendations for improvement, which were well applied and sound. However, some suggestions were rather journal, which statements like report to management and undertake training. Examiner is saying some were very journal, like report to management, what to report, how to report, or undertake training, which training, how to undertake training. If you just write recommendation, Optima should give training, full stop, that's quite a vague statement. But you should discuss it properly, that the human resource department should ensure that the regular trainings are given to the instructors, so to ensure that the instructor complies with the company's policy, etc. Put the proper statement. Put the proper statement, not just putting a sentence and stopping. When, okay, sorry, this should come in the red. When making recommendations, candidates are reminded that they must fully explain and justify the recommendation in the context of the case. So when you are explaining a recommendation, you should be explaining them well in the context of the case. Some suggested more drastic or unrealistic recommendation. So some suggested more drastic or unrealistic recommendations, such as the club managers not reviewing their monthly reports should be fired immediately. You cannot write statements like such because you need to think about what the company can do without firing them. Can they train them? Can they check them? Can they monitor them, etc.? And that the breaches of the security, which is in the weakness number 3, which we have not covered, could be improved by facial recognition technologies. You cannot tell a recommendation which is costly. For security breaches at a club, you can have physical security, which is far better because club can be secured by security, a physical security, rather than saying facial recognition technology, as if you're talking about a giant organization like Apple or Amazon, which is for them, this is affordable. So you need to think about the affordability of a recommendation, even rather than just being obsessed with the technological era or just being obsessed with the Hollywood movies and recommending, oh, facial recognition technology should be put in place. So everything you watch in a movie cannot be put in context of Optima here. Okay, cutting and pasting from Exhibit 8 seems to help some candidates with this question. If it was used correctly. I think some of the student was asking me this question, Alana, I guess, or someone, that cutting and pasting from Exhibit 8 seems to help some candidates with this question if was used correctly. See, this was a nature of question where you had to cut paste. You had to cut paste because you were copying the weakness and you were converting the weakness into the implication, right? So that's exactly what you need to do in this case. So cutting pasting from Exhibit 8 help some candidates with this question. So in a nature of question like such, in future exams, you can do so, but not in any other question, because examiner really is very aggressive with students copying too much from the exhibits without making use of it. You can copy from the exhibit provided you make use of it, unless otherwise it's useless. Key weaknesses, we've already covered them down above. Too much reliance on copy pasting from Exhibit 8, not making use of it, not fully justifying the recommendation or giving very harsh recommendations, or failing to present any impact at all. And most candidates achieved good professional marks as you evaluated each impact very well and recommendations. So candidates who attained low professional marks largely did so because they presented answers which did not adequately appraise the weakness or presented unjustified recommendation. Harsh recommendations, illogical implications can put you out of context. But if you're giving implications in context of Optima and you're recommending something in context of Optima, that's overall good. So is that clear with the recommendations of the examiner? Now let's do one final drill for day 4. So this was basically the question 4. Now moving ahead of this and just looking at something extremely important today, because tomorrow we have to open the reinforcement of the core models and theories. So we are not practicing any paper tomorrow, but just listen to me very carefully now onwards. First of all, I believe something which should be cleared over the last 3 days is how you look at professional marks. I hope you got some clarity on that. I'll wait for your answers first before giving you some more suggestions. Are you feeling better on professional marks over the last 3 days than you were before the webinar? All of you? Are you feeling better? And then what exactly is a betterment? What exactly is a betterment? Because I need to conclude on something and your answers will help me. What exactly is a betterment? If you can put a sentence quickly in the chat box. Okay, a lot more simpler to get professional marks. And what make that simpler, Sahil? What make that simpler for you? Because I'm looking for that key sentence. What make that simpler for you to get professional marks? What? Exactly what? Okay, we don't need to learn the definitions of the skills. You just need to focus on what the examiner is asking for. Okay, like the definitions. Okay. Okay, Sahil, I'm waiting for your answers. Exactly what is the easier part now? Okay, relating every answer to case and not entirely the technical knowledge. Okay, that's good. Okay, now just before I conclude on professional marks, let's get back to this, because this holds the key for the next 30 minutes. Can you look at the examiner report again on front? And in this examiner report, you go down, there is a proper page number 6, which is about professional skill marks. I just click on this and I reach here. In front of your screen, you can see a very robust commentary by the examiner on professional skill marks, and I will be using it for making my own summary, which I've used over the last 3 days. And I believe this will be really impactful of fetching most of the 20 marks, because any student who fetch most of the 20 marks is in a better position to cross 50, because alone technical, you cannot pass the SBL paper. That is for sure clear. Okay, just 10 minutes and reading through professional marks quickly. I'll keep my speed faster. Many candidates had clearly thought about professional marks and attempted to present their answers in an appropriate format. So examiner is saying most of the students answered the question in an appropriate format as requested in each task. Presentation of answer has certainly improved in recent sittings. So he's also happy with the presentation of answers. So one thing he's talking about is an appropriate format. One thing he's talking about is the presentation of the answer in the para 1. So let me take this back to the Word file, professional marks. The first thing the examiner is talking about is an appropriate format. I'm just taking things in the order of the examiner. Appropriate format. Then the examiner is talking about presentation of the answer, and he's very happy that this has improved over last few sittings. Okay, moving back. Whatever the format requested, the recipient will be helped by the answer that is presented and structured logically. So your answer will be good if it is presented and structured clearly with headers throughout the answer, and which avoid long paragraphs or repetitive information. Have I covered this in my previous few days? An answer that is presented and structured clearly. Have I covered this? With headers throughout the answer. I've demonstrated the headers with, and which avoid long paragraphs. Look at my answer. No answer is more than 4 sentences long. No answer is more than 4 sentences long. So when you're writing the answer, examiner is saying presentation of the answer, and this is the presentation of the answer. Presented and structured clearly. Presented and structured clearly with headers throughout the answer. So you have headers, avoid long paragraphs, and repetitive information. So 3 key things on your screen. So what does a presentation of answer means, everyone? Headers, avoiding long paragraphs, and repetitive information. 3. So that 3 will bring you to a good presentation of the answer. Appropriate format: letter, briefing note, report, slides, etc. Is number 1 and 2 clear to all of you? Back. These were common faults. So examiner is saying these are the common faults, red with professional marks. Not paying attention to the format required. Nothing can be done about such students. I don't know what really happens to you in the exam paper, not paying attention to the format required. Next, not considering who was receiving the document produced. If you're writing it to the finance director or you're writing it to the chief executive officer, you need to prioritize things, or at least go in a logical order. Weakness 1, weakness 2, weakness 3, weakness 4, rather than writing the weakness 4 first, then 2, then 1, then 3. If you're presenting something to a board or you're presenting something to a chief executive officer, you need to ensure that things are prioritized, or the more important things are put first. You cannot put definitions, you cannot put backgrounds, writing things to the chief executive officer or finance director. A lot of times the student have a very bad habit of introducing the topic. Suppose if a question comes on integrated reporting, and the question is asking for evaluate the benefit of using the integrated reporting for Optima, something like that, 10 marks. Now, instead of telling examiner what is the value or importance of an integrated reporting for Optima, you will start the answer by first telling that an integrated report is a concise communication about governance, about prospects, about performance, about strategy, etc. full stop. The integrated report consists of 6 capitals: financial, intellectual, relationship capital, etc. And you then start putting the definitions of the capital. So many times I've seen student mock answers, I've seen student assignment. Then when they start answering a topic, they will first give the knowledge. Like if they're doing an answer on CSR, they will tell that the CSR has a normative approach and an instrumental approach. And then they will talk about Gray, Owen, Adam, and then they'll talk about Johnson and Scholl. And then they come to the answer. Why? In an SBL paper, there is no space of writing a rote learn knowledge. There is no space of writing a background of the topic as if the examiner don't know about it. How many of you do that? Is there someone in this live session who do this? Because that's extremely a wrong approach if you are doing it. Because that's not the approach of a strategic business leader. A strategic business leader starts from where it has to be started. A strategic business leader is very efficient. He knows the value of time. He knows the value of money. He's not wasting time on something for which you are scoring 0. How many of you do that? Anyone who can claim that you do this? You look at a topic and you introduce a topic before you come to, oh, what was the examiner asking? Like customer segmentation. You will first tell everything about customer segmentation before even realizing the examiner was asking you the value of customer segmentation to Optima, or telling something about big data, or telling something about mobile technologies, not even knowing what the question was asking for. How many of you do that? There is a complete silence currently. What should I assume this as an acceptance from all of you? Are you getting my point, everyone? How many of you do this? Okay, one student, Tajwar, is saying, I don't. What about others? How many of you do? I don't either, Sahil. That's good. And those who are silent, what should I assume? You do. So silence is acceptance, right? Okay, at least 2 students are clearly saying, I don't. That's good. Rest are not interested in responding. So let's not conclude on their stance. Okay, so not considering who was receiving the document produced. So please ensure, avoid these introductions. Waste of time, no marks, and you're just writing something of which there is no purpose and no value. Third, poor tone and comment mates. Tone is what? Tone is demonstrating commercial acumen, demonstrating skepticism, demonstrating evaluation. Now you need to read the statement very well, because if you read the statement very well, what you need to demonstrate, you will be giving the answer in the right tone. So the third thing, which I will believe comes in the professional marks, is the tone. And the tone is what is to be demonstrated and how. Have we covered this in the last 3 days of the webinar? What is to be demonstrated and how? That is the skill. That is the skill required. And if you read the statement, what is to be demonstrated and how, will you be in a far better position to tone the answer in the appropriate manner? Have we covered this demonstration on day 2? Demonstrate this, demonstrate that. And does that line make sense? What is to be done? Is that demonstration line of the examiner vague or meaningful? Tell me. Is that demonstration line of the examiner vague or meaningful? I'm asking a question to all of you. Is that line meaningful? Yes. Thank you. And when you read at home, do you exactly know now what is to be done? So tone is very important, right? Okay, moving back. Failing to demonstrate sound commercial acumen. We know whenever the examiner asks you commercial acumen, the examiner will tell you how you need to demonstrate commercial acumen. We were even looking for that yesterday when we were looking at the customer segmentation analysis. So again, examiner is very much concerned about the way you demonstrate the professional skills in the last two bullets, and we've just exactly picked that out. Candidates should remember that they're carrying out a professional task that has a purpose for a defined stakeholder. It cannot be stressed enough how vital it is that candidates read the technical and professional requirements together, as they will assist them in formulating their answers in a correct style, tone, and level of professionalism. Tell me, look at this statement. This is something where I can take a sigh of relief, because this is something I have been reinforcing since the last 3 days, a keynoting of the examiner, and which I have addressed in the last 3 days. Tell me, has this been addressed? Look at this. Examiner saying it cannot be stressed enough that you have to read the technical and professional requirements together, as this will assist them in formulating. Have I shown you on day 2 the way to read technical marks, break them, professional marks, break them, plan the structure of the answer, how to go about it? Is that something extremely important from the day 2 of the webinar? Right, good. So examiner is exactly putting that in the report. Okay, then let's move down few of the last things. As referred to above, an example of where candidate failed to do this was in the question number 1B. We did that question number 1B. I think that was a CSR, strategic importance of CSR. The question asked to demonstrate communication skill in concisely informing the board members of the optima strategic importance of CSR. Many candidates answer failed to demonstrate the communication skill necessary to effectively and concisely inform the board of the strategic importance. Therefore, although they may have presented the answer in the appropriate presentation slides and notes, if they fail to demonstrate sound communication skill by presenting their points logically, concisely, and in an appropriate tone, they were awarded few professional marks. So if you are presenting an answer in a slide with notes, you might be getting the technical marks. But if you're not presenting them concisely, logically, and in a proper tone to the board of director, 3 professional marks, you might just get 1. So that could be a big dent to you when you fail at 47, 48, 49. So let's conclude on professional marks. So when you want to gain professional marks, will you be concerned about the format, all of you? Have we covered them? Will you be concerned about the presentation of the answer? And all of you know what presentation of answer is? Headers. Avoid long paragraphs. Have we covered this all? And repetitive information. 3. And would you ensure the proper tone of the answer? Now, is this 3 essential to fetch most of your professional marks? And is that an easy definition of professional marks for all of you? That's number 1. And lastly, I would like to add one more thing here. Connect with case study. Connect with case study as much as possible. As much as possible. That is very important. So this 4 makes the professional marks. This 4 makes the professional mark, right? And that is also the end for the day 4. I'll meet you back with day 5 and the recording of. Hello and assalamu alaikum. I'm Kashif Kamran. Welcome back to the day 4 of the SBL webinar to success. I got disconnected again. So this is the second time in the session that there is a disconnection, but we just left with last 30 minutes of the day 4. So just let's wind it up and the recording gets uploaded in one go. Now we were discussing the professional marks just when we got disconnected. Let me put that on the screen. We concluded that 4 essential things are required for gaining most of the professional marks in SBL. Number 1, the format. Number 2, the presentation of the answer, which itself consists of 3 things: headings, shorter paragraphs, not more than 4 sentences long, and avoiding repetition. Then the tone, which is the demonstration of the skill on which the day 2 and day 3 of the webinar was very clear, and then connecting with the case study, because that connection with the case study is extremely important. The more you connect with the case study, the better for you, because that is extremely important, not just to gain the professional marks, but also to gain your technical marks. So it's extremely important that the connection with the case is very, very important. Now, just few of the last things from this understanding. The computer-based exams, the SBL, and we just need to have a final list of things so that you have a comfortable application of that on the day of your exams. We were just looking at the portal, the practice platform. Just let me put that in front of your screen now again for one final time. Again, you can see the platform in front. Now, just an affirmative and just a recap and just a reinforcement, and that would be really good for you. Number one, when you start the SBL paper in your exam environment, you have 4 hours, right? Now, in that 4 hours, the first 1 hour is playing a crucial part, because that 1 hour has to be utilized in an effective manner. If you are not utilizing that first 1 hour in an effective manner, or you don't know what is the definition of effective manner, you are wasting time, which will spoil the 3 hours you have for reflection, for writing the answer. Now, listen to this very carefully. In the first 1 hour, what has been decided in the last 3 days? In the first 1 hour, the very first thing you will do is to open the task given on the left panel, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. You open up the task, right? And you read a task and you copy the task into the response option. For example, a task is requiring you to prepare a report, copy that into the word processor. A briefing note, copy that into a word processor. A letter, a press release, copy that in a word processor. Or a slide, copy that in the slide response option. So in the first 10 minutes of your 1 hour, read the task, copy the task, and paste the task in the response option, and structure the task just like I did on the day 2 of the webinar. That exactly what you need to do in the task 1A. You need to write a report. You should know that. You should know the professional marks and you should know the technical marks. So in 10 minutes, you will structure the task on the response option. And I did demonstrated that on my day 2. So you can go back and watch it. Then you have 50 minutes, right? Now, you know what is to be done, because when you were copying, pasting the task, you absorbed here. Now, you know the task 1 requires customer segmentation. For example, you know the task 2 requires something about the BFIT program, or the task 3 requires something about the mobile technology and data analytics. And the task 4 requires something about internal control weaknesses, right? Now, you know these keywords. Now, when you read the exhibits, wherever you find some information about internal control weaknesses, or you find some information about the collaborative partnership, the BFIT program, or you find some information about mobile technology or data analytics, or you find some information about customer segmentation, you will copy those informations and keep pasting that under the respective task on the word processor. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. But you're not copy pasting a paragraph, you're copy pasting a line, a sentence, or few words, just to remember that you need to convert this or develop this into a point later. Now, that 50 minutes where you're reading through the exhibits and you're connecting the exhibits with the task 1, 2, 3, 4, because you remember the keywords. So wherever you find something about mobile technology, you will copy that up and put that in task 3. Wherever you find something about collaborative partnership, you will put that up and put that in task 2. And that's how the 50 minutes gets over and the total 1 hour gets down. Now, 1 hour later, you have your word processor ready, with the task and with copy paste information available. Now you just have one window after 1 hour, and this one window is right here, the word processor. And now on this one window, you're spending your entire 3 hours. You're not going back to exhibits. You're not going back anywhere. You are right here. You're not going back to task even, because the task is here. The copy paste is here. You just need to now sit down, open up a task and start answering it. If you need to make a report, start answering it. You need to make a briefing note, start answering it. But the amount of information you copy pasted will help you in designing the answer, in rephrasing the answer, in linking the answer to the case study. And any extra information which you copy pasted on your response option, which is not utilized in your answer, which you found was extra, simply delete any unattended information on the response option. Only keep that information on response option, which is answer. Anything extra put in but not used, delete it. That's extremely important. Now, one thing which I even discussed today, that when you read this, the right-hand side of the screen, examiner will tell you the titles of each exhibit, that what is exhibit 1, what is 2, what is 3, what is 4, what is 5, to up to 8 in this case. Now, when you are reading the titles of exhibit, you might find a terminology which is a subject matter of a task. For example, you find CSR as a terminology and you say, oh, this is the subject matter of the task 1B. Or you find a terminology mobile technology or technology and you say, oh, this is the subject matter of the task 3. So immediately your mind will start to process and you will say, okay, this particular exhibit will be very important when I'm answering a particular task. So you can note it down on the word processor in front of the task 1B, for example, that exhibit number 3 and 5 will be important because they're using the terminology CSR apart from other exhibits. There is a possibility that other exhibits also contain information about CSR, but at least 3 and 5 seems more important because they have information about CSR. So that's another utilization of connecting exhibits with the with your task and then delivering the best in context of 3 hours. Let's make a quick recap of things we decided on the practice platforms over the day today and over the previous day. First of all, you need to decide decisions about Scratchpad. And what we concluded is that at least I, as a tutor, and most of the students agree with me in the live session, that they're not using Scratchpad because everything is going down to the response options area of no use as decided. Next, we decided the on-screen calculator, and we found diversified opinions. Some students prefer using on-screen calculator and other prefer their own. So again, it's totally up to you. No enforcement here, but again, you have to go with your own judgments. But on Scratchpad, we had a consensus. Then highlighter, no doubt, that's an extremely important area because highlighter is used for annotations and annotations of important informations in the exhibits, which should be copy pasted on your response option, which should be copy pasted in the response option. So highlighter will help you highlight the important things, which can then be copy pasted to your response options available. So 3 important things, that is it. Then you come down next. The first 1 hour and the remaining 3 hours. The first 1 hour and then the remaining 3 hours. The first 1 hour is extremely important because that's known as the reading and planning time. And what exactly are you doing under that first 1 hour is extremely important. Now, in that first 1 hour, First of all, you should read the task and copy paste the task in respective response options as shown in day 2 of the webinar. So if you forgot that, go and check it out. You should read the task, copy paste that. Next, after you've done that, read the title of exhibits given on the right hand side of the screen. That is the that is the computer-based platform in front of you. Read the title of the exhibits given on the right hand side of the screen in front of you in exam, and try to pick exhibits which gets connected with a particular task. If there is a certain exhibit like such, mention the exhibit number in front of the task, in response option, as we did on day 4 today for exhibit 8 versus task 4, right? So I hope you agree. Then you start reading all exhibits. Read all exhibits, and wherever you find something about customer segmentation or CSR or mobile technology or big data or collaborative partnership or weaknesses, copy, paste the relevant information in the response option under the particular task. Now, at the end of 60 minutes, you have understood the task. You've understood the task. You know the format to write answer in. You know which professional marks to demonstrate. You know which skill to demonstrate, and you have got plenty of information copy pasted under each task to proceed to writing answer, Now 1 hour absorbed, and the end result is you have plenty to write answer. So you've got plenty to write answer. That's the end result. If you get it, wonderful. Now remaining 3 hours. Start to write your answer one by one in any order you wish to. You have to complete all the tasks. You do task 4 first and 1 after. That's totally up to you, but finish all the tasks one by one in any order, because see, it's a word processor, right? Your task 1 is up, 2, 3, 4. If you fill the task 3 first, the 4 will shift down and the space will automatically be created. It's not a manual exam, right? Where you have to keep pages empty. No, it's a computer-based exam. So if you write something in the middle, the other task will keep shifting down. So automatically you can do task in any order. Start to write your answer one by one in any order, whichever you want to write first, and complete the answer. Any extra information pasted on response option, not used, delete it off before you proceed to the next task. Ensure the information pasted is used as much as possible, because that will ensure a case specific answer, but don't just copy paste a statement without evaluating it or explaining it or putting it in context, because alone copy paste is of no use. And again, that was something repeated over the last 3 days, and from the examiner report and from the examiner criticism, etc. And that's extremely important to remember. So in the remaining 3 hours, you write an answer, case specific answer, deleting the copy paste information which is of no use, and then you go down in that. Ensure you gain professional marks as guided above, and ensure you keep the answers tidy. 2 marks per valid point, so you know exactly how much to write. So if it is a 12 marks answer, you're writing 6 points and wrapping up the answer, not dragging your answer. So that's what exactly you have to do in the remaining 3 hours. So there is no time management issue, and no one should complain about time management issues, because that's not the case with the SBL paper. So that's how you should be going with the computer-based exams for SBL. And probably when you read through it, take a printout and you rewatch this webinar would be helpful to you. Now, you must have practiced a lot on the platform, so you must have made your own way of doing things, which should be more better, and you should not be changing them at this point in time when your exam's a few days away. But if you think something is good enough and that should be changed for an opportunity to pass, then do it. But if you're doing something and you have already developed efficiency on that and you're very happy with that, then don't try to change at this point in time, because changing at this point in time can be risky at times as well. But if you believe, no, this is something good, I can do it and they can be helpful to me, then do it in the remaining days you have, so you have a command on that area in an effective manner. So today, on the day 4 of this webinar, we went through another investigation of September-December 21 paper, task 4. We did evaluate the examiner report scatteredly, but again, the reinforcement is you have to read the whole examiner report. You have to read word by word the examiner report. That is extremely important. Again, you need to understand the limitations of webinars. These are free resources. You need to understand the time constraints. Everything is not possible, but the guidance is to be followed. If I say read the examiner report and I show you how, then you follow it. If I show you, okay, this is how you write an answer, follow it. Again, the purpose of the webinar is to push you and you move forward. And we did discuss the do's and don'ts of the practice platform as well. We had key learnings from day 3, and then again, we have been into the practice platform and examiner report plenty of time today in the session as well. So I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the sessions, and I will be meeting you back for one final day, which will be the day 5 tomorrow, where we are just taking an holistic overview of SBL, trying to ensure that the importance of articles, theories, models, what to remember, how to remember, what are key things examiner looks for in terms of technical knowledge, looking at the past paper. Okay, this has been very common, this has been very repetitive, this comes a lot, because since September 18 to now, we have plenty of exam questions to analyze what are more core areas, or what are more focused areas of the examining team, in which areas we should not be underprepared. So a lot of analysis of the paper, core areas, models, theories, how to go about them comes on the last day of the webinar, and that would be extremely important for you on the 1st of June. I think your exam is on the 7th of June, so it would really be beneficial for all of you. So this is Kashif Kamran signing off from the day 4 of the SBL webinar to success, and really apologize for the interruptions we had in between the sessions. But again, the recording gets uploaded as one. So when you're watching the recording, you will not be bothered about the interruptions. Because I was conducting the live class, but the recording gets as one on the YouTube channel. So day 4, your tutor Kashif Kamran signing off from SBL webinar to success. Have a nice day. Wish you all success and see you back tomorrow, day 5, the final day. Take care. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.